And also, I just realized I gotta share my screen. So I'm glad I did that before I started rambling. So today I'm going to be showing you how to do the first part. I'll be recording this in two parts, starting with the main chassis of the wagon. So this is our final project for the Maya Fundamentals, our first module. And so this is just a simple building a wagon from reference. So it's just going to be a lot of moving cubes around and using pivot points and things along those lines. So you'll find the file that you need. You need to use my file that I provide to you to make sure that you match to the proportions. So you need this P1 wagon.zip that I have uploaded for you. So download that. You will get a zip file. When you unzip that zip file, so you should just be able to double click it and it will extract, or if you right click it, it should say extract, whatever. In that folder, you will find, it says P2 wagon start. That's my bad. Last year this was the second project, but it doesn't matter. So you'll see the P2 wagon start. You'll see some image files. You need the image files in the same folder as the Maya file. Just so we're clear, the pictures and the Maya file have to be in the same spot. When you turn in your Maya file, you don't need to give me the pictures back. I know what I have the pictures. You don't need to worry about that. You just will give me back the Maya file. But for when you are working on this, it is clear that you need to make it clear to you that you understand that the Maya file and the pictures have to be in the same spot, or the pictures won't show up in Maya because they are textures. So when you open this up, you should see this. So green plane, something to build on. You don't really need to do anything with that. And then you have two reference images, one for your side view. Whoops. Whoa, that is... What are we doing, Maya? Okay, that was scary. So one for the side view. We will not be using this for much for this first video, other than to get the proper length for the base of our wagon. So same thing for this. This, again, for today's assignment, will only be used to get us the width of our wagon. So our length and our width of our wagon. Our dimensions for depth will be based on our reference image here. So this is the reference image for the chassis that we're making. The chassis that was on those reference images is way too difficult for us to make. So we're going to make this very simple one. It's essentially a box with wheels. So it's nothing crazy. So let's take a look at what our construction is made up of for this. So we have sort of a box frame for the chassis, with a little bit of a bucket in front for the feet. And then obviously two axles and four wheels. And then also we'll point out that these little metal half circles here, ovals I should say, those are actually shocks. Those are old-timey shocks. And yes, they suck as bad as you would expect when they're just solid metal. So that's how it went back in the day. The one thing I will say is these little flourishes on the side you don't need to add, so don't worry about those. I always get questions about that. If you do it, great. If you don't do it, I didn't expect you to. So just know that they are not mandatory. I wouldn't even say they're optional. You probably shouldn't do them. Okay, so construction history. So let's take a look at how this is actually built up before I start going around in Maya. Okay. Hit 5 or 6 rather. Hit 6. Person who messaged me. If not, you're just gonna have to wait. Give me a second. With this, there is these two boards on the top part that are the same length, same size, same everything. Same thing with the front, except you can tell all three of these are the same throughout. The only one that changes is the bottom one, which is actually slightly longer, and it is slanted at the front. okay? So the first thing that I'm going to make here is one long cube that I'm going to stretch into a rectangle and make this thin long board. And then I'm going to duplicate it and make these 3. And then I will duplicate it across symmetrically. So I'm going to start with my 3 boards for the side. So that's what we're going to do first. Let's go in here. And for a lot of this, I'm just going to be, eyeballing some stuff to a certain extent. So we're starting in here. I'm going to grab a cube and lift it up, scale it in. And so that looks like a decent thickness and length. Actually, probably make it a little smaller. Start scaling it out. Now, I am going to go into my side view, zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to move this board down and start scaling it out. A little less. Okay. And I'm just lining it up with the base of this reference so that I know how long I need to make this. In case any of you are wondering why there's this image of this covering in here, that is part 2. So we want it to match with our reference for when we do that. Okay, so we got a board here. However, when I flip into my front view, it's kind of in the middle. Also, looking at this, I'm going to make this a little taller. Just a little taller. So I'm going to line this up with the base of the image here. Don't worry about this. Just go with the where I have it cut on the picture. So line it up with the base here. So we go back in our perspective view. So now I got this board floating out here. So I'm doing the left side of my wagon if I'm looking at it, and it's lined up here. Okay. So let's go back into our side view. Oh, okay. You know what? I belay that last order. Get it to line up vertically with this one. So don't move it down in this one. Just get it to line up with. Oh wow, that worked out perfectly. Actually, I didn't realize I did that. Yeah, just get it to line up vertically in the y-axis with the side view. Clarifying. Okay. Yeah, pretty much. So I'm just gonna duplicate that down, Command D. So let me pause. So duplicated that down. That is my second board. Now if we pull this back up, our third board is essentially just the front is a little longer. So I'm gonna duplicate this one more time, and I'm gonna move this front face, okay, so that I lengthen this board, as opposed to scaling it, because then I'm gonna have this position is going to change, and I don't really want that position to change. I want these all to be smooth across the back, have an even line. So if I duplicate this again, bring it down, and again we're just eyeballing on this stuff, so I can see there's slight gaps between them, and that's what we want. All right, so let me go into my perspective view. Yes, that's fine. You are using a student version of Maya. We all are. Because we're all learners. Except for me. So, this face in the front, I'm going to go ahead and just move that forward. Now, I'm just going to look at this image. I'm going to come to some sort of agreement and be like, okay, that looks like, what, about a fifth? About a fifth of the length of the other ones, so that looks about right. Maybe a little bit more. So we got the total distance covered. Now, returning to our reference image, you will also notice that the front is cut at an angle. So you might think, many of you probably think, that let's go ahead and tilt this with the rotate tool. Nah, bad. Look at what it does. That's not what we want. Nope. So instead, what we're going to do, go into edge selection mode, grab this edge at the top, and just pull that slightly forward, and now we have the slant that we want, and it doesn't distort the shape. All right. Whoops. Not what I meant to click. All right. So that is three planks. 2 of them just duplicated straight up. The third one just duplicated down and tweaked a little bit. Great. That is the left side of our chassis. So let's get this duplicated over to the other side. So just like with our good friend the training wheels rig, easiest way to do this, considering I am building around the origin, again, you are welcome for setting this up so that it does this. I'm going to duplicate these objects. I'm going to group these objects. Pivot point goes to the origin, which is the axis of symmetry. X-axis is this way. The scale of X on this group is now -1. And now you have a symmetrical flip. So again, let me undo that. Undo, undo. Okay, so again, we're back at just our left side is done. So again, I just select the objects, not the ground. Make sure you don't do that. So select the 3 objects, duplicate them, then immediately put the duplicates in a group, Command G, and then your group's pivot point is set to the origin. So the scale X-axis, we want to change from 1 to -1 in the channel box. And now we got a symmetrical flip. Pretty handy. All right, so back to our reference. We have 3 planks for each of the sides. We got 6 planks done. We need 3 and 3 planks for the front and back to create the box that is our wagon chassis. So let's go ahead and, for sake of simplicity and regularity amongst our boards, I'm going to take this cube on the top here, my actual starting point. Not that it really matters, but go ahead and just pull this out. And so the pivot point for this object is luckily still in the center. If you ever need to double check that, again, modify center pivot. But we know that the pivot point is set to the center of this. So when I scale it, it will scale equally on both sides, right? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to snap this to the grid. So I just snapped this to the origin, more or less. I'm going to rotate it on the Y 90 degrees. So now it's going horizontal-ish, I guess, if you want to call it that way. And so what I'm going to do, go into my side view, toggle on my good friend, the X-ray. Whoops. All right, we'll get this lined up here. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want to try and get it close. All right, that's pretty good. Let's push it all the way to the back here. Now, I do want to point out on our design, you can see the boards are nested within the sides. They are not nailed onto the front of the sides. They are within the sides, which means that you need to scale it to be within the confines of your 2 side boards on the sides. So that means when I'm doing this, I need to get it inside this a little bit. And there we go. Now in my front view. Oh, except I did not snap it to the origin. So let's snap it to the origin. Okay, perfect. So now I can scale this in until eventually yeah, okay, that's fine. So it's slightly inside of it, but you know, whatever, it doesn't make a gap. It's good. It's whatever. So we got that. Second verse, same as the first. Duplicate it, Move it down. Duplicate it. Move it down. Now, maybe it works. I don't know. Actually, I'm not going to flip it symmetrically. That seems kind of troll. So, again, I am just going to duplicate these. And instead of grouping them, I'm just going to pull the whole squad up front by themselves. No group. I'm not 100%. It may be flipped symmetrically across the origin. I'm not 100% sure, so I'm just going to skip that step. Alright, so we got it lined up here. Let me go in this view. Let's see what's going on from our side view. Yep, that's looking excellent. Alright, boom. We're on the road to Viridian City. So, our next thing, we have a board that sits here. We have a base that sits here. And we got a little riding seat. So, few more things to go. So first things first, I'm going to add this board at the front. Then I'm going to add my base. And then we'll do the chair. So just like we slanted these, we're going to, first we'll duplicate this up, bring it forward. And let me double check, excuse me, that this lines up in the front. Okay, cool. So just like we did with moving this edge forward, we want to move the face that is on top forward to make this entire object slant properly as if it were cut like that. Because again, if I were to say rotate this, you will see that the top and bottom of it will not end up flat with the top and bottom of our other board, which, well, I guess on the top, because it's sort of rounded, I'm not making you do the rounding part. It would be fine there, but on the bottom it needs to be flat. So, again, all you need to do from this location, you just duplicated it forward, move it so that the base is lined up, then you just grab in face mode, excuse me, on top, grab the face on top, move tool, line it up. Yeah, that seems about decent. I'm going to grab it in object mode, and you'll see the pivot point's a little off. Center my pivot again. Here, I'm going to move it down just a touch. Cool. Whoops. Okay. Getting kind of sketch. Sorry, I'm saving in the middle of this because Maya's kind of getting kind of weird. So I want to make sure I save a copy of this. Okay, so we got this so far. So now I'm just going to take a cube, and this is going to be my base. So I'm just going to hoist it up, flatten it out. Let's go into my side view here. So we'll just bring this up here. Scale tool. Make it nice and long. And so, whoops. So let's look at our reference. So you can see that on the front, it is even with the front. Great. With the back, there's a little bit of lip. In fact, there's a fairly uniform lip that goes around both sides and the back. Okay? So just a little thing to keep track of when you're doing it. So I'm going to, again, zoom in over here. Grab my face on the front. Quick way to do this, I'm going to click and drag like so. I'm selecting all the faces on the top and the sides and this front one. Control and drag down. Get rid of them. Boom, I got the face on the front. Easy peasy. All right, pull that forward. Very good. All right. Let's go ahead and, whoops, in object mode now. Go into this view. Let's scale this out. All right. So I'm going to go into my top view now because it'll make it easy for me to figure out how uniformly this appears. So again, I just want a fairly thin, uniform lip around the outside of my chassis, okay? So that's what we're doing. Not too crazy big. That seems appropriate. And then, so same thing as I was doing on the other side, I'm going to switch into face mode, grab this, control and drag across, deselect, grab my move tool, and I'm just eyeballing it. That looks about good. Fantastic. Chassis is a go. So for this, oh, I do need to do the bottom. I don't do that in the next one. Yeah, I will need to do the bottom. Okay, that's fine. Let's do the seat. So the seat. People often ask me, Mr. Meyer, how do I make a triangle? This ain't a triangle. Look closely. Back is flat. The bottom is flat. There's a slant here. There's a flat face on the front. This is a rectangular prism of some kind. Or, I don't know if it's necessarily a rectangular prism. Whatever. It's four-sided face, not a triangle. So, cube, 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 cube. Also a cube. Let's get into it. Take a cube. This is going to be my support that comes up and then it bends in, and then on the opposite side there's going to be a similar fixture that goes down. So let's go back into here. I'm just going to pull this way up. We're going to scale this nice and thin. Nice and thin. Zoom in. A little thinner. Okay, cool. Let's go into my front view. Move it over. Wireframe mode. Move it down, and I'm actually going to have it so that it goes through the floor because that's the kind of guy I am. Switch into vertex mode to make my life easy. Grab this. Yoink. Oh, hold on. 6 for textured mode, excuse me. Okay, cool. Go back here. All right. So I got this. Let me go into my side view. And so we want to bring this way up to the front. And let's take a look how close to the front. Okay. That's a good point of reference. It's about even what the axle looks like, so that'll be good to know. That's probably about there. I'd like to put my axle there and there. Okay, that's fine. We'll put that there. All right, so back in perspective mode. So we got this. Fantastique. Okay. So our next thing is that I'm sure everyone wants to get the nice little flowy, bendy curve there. We don't have the technology for a wedge extrude yet. I mean, I do, but you don't. So what we are going to do is just extrude and then extrude a different face. So watch how I get this shape. Again, this bracket is sort of kind of like an L piece from Tetris. What's up? All right. Okay, so we have this top part here, and what I'm going to do is select the top face here, and I'm going to extrude and more or less create like a square. Cool. And now I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to pull this in. It is on the Canvas modules page. P1 Wagon. So now I got this. Let me go into my front view. Boom. Okay, so this is the bracket that will support my seat. So before I start flipping things symmetrically, I'm gonna make this half of my seat, and also the base in the back, which won't be flipped symmetrically, but still. So let's start with, I made a new cube. Pull it up here. And, oh, you know what? I'm dumb. Sorry. You don't want to make a new cube. I'm going to take one of these and pull it up. So I duplicated that. Let's go into my front view. Boom. Same concept. Scale it in. And let's take a look. Sure. Now, height-wise, does that seem appropriate? Yes. Very good. So, let me just lift that up a little bit, and I'm going to go to the side view. Okay, it's definitely off, so we'll put that. We'll just generally put this here. I may move it in a second. And so, same concept though. I'm going to duplicate this, pull it forward, except this time I'm going to rotate it this way, which seems like it's 90, 90, 0, whatever. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Let's move this down. And I'm going to just scale this to make it a little longer. And let's get that centered on there. Again, just eyeballing. Nice. Okay, cool. I lined that up pretty well. All right. So that's our front and back. I mean, our back and our, not our front and back, our back and our bottom. So now we need to do one of the sides so that we can duplicate it across. So let's duplicate this, rotate it 90 degrees, or actually rotate it back to 0 degrees. Okay, fair enough. And let's go into our side view. And we'll just do this. All right. And now I'm going to grab these vertices. Boom. Pull these back to here. Let's again double check. Yep, lines up at the front. And then I'm going to grab these verts and yoink. Let me look at my... Yeah, okay. I think this is also slanted with this maybe. I'm not sure. Doesn't really matter. I'm not really getting that detail oriented. Those kind of details are a little much. Okay. Oh, and then one last thing. Almost forgot. Front view again. Boom. Let's line this up with the side here. Oh, and let's not get that clipping. So let me go grab these vertices and move them up like this. Cool. Excellent. All right, modify center pivot just because that kind of stuff bothers me. Great. So we got this. We got this. Same thing as we did earlier. Duplicate. Group. Scale X. -1. Not -14. -1. Blam. All right. That is the chassis portion. So I'm going to pause real quick. Okay. So going off from this, we got the chassis portion done. Before we break, I want to, for part 1, we want to get our shocks and tires on. Now, this looks kind of complicated. It's not really. There's a bunch of rotations and duplications. So the first thing we're going to do, give us a place to pin our stuff to. Let's plan out where we're going to put our axle. Okay, our first axle. Okay, we will, in fact, yeah. Let's plan our axles first. We're not going to put the second one because obviously we're just going to do one and then duplicate it, move it back, right? So let's just plan out our first axle, which I said would be in line with this. All right, cylinder. Scale it down a lot. Make it tall again. Thin it down a lot. Make it tall again. And then we'll rotate it on the Z. 90 degrees. Move tool. Blam. Okay, let's go into our side view. And again, I said I want to line it up with my seat. So more or less, okay. And then let's look at our reference. It's not super far beneath this. Okay. Now, before I start building the tire, because everyone seems to want to just put their axle on the bottom of the wagon and forget that this exists. We are going to place our axle, and then let's connect our axle to the body, right? So I'm going to use I typically use a pipe. So I will use under the platonic solids, go grab myself a pipe. And I'm gonna, again, just rotate this 90 degrees on the Z. And let's take a look at my inputs. So, my thickness value. I think I typically change this to 0.05. 0.1's fine too. But I'm gonna type in 0.05. Boom. Nice and thin. And then, all I'm gonna do, and I like to increase the radius a little bit. Okay. Lower the height though. Oh, never mind, not the height. My bad. I'm crazy talk. Okay. Let's delete half of these. So we just want the half circle on the bottom. Good news for us. The pivot point's still in the center. Scale it a little bit. Now I know someone's gonna point out, hey, Mr. Meyer, you kind of distorted it. Yeah, I know. Let's not talk about it. Unless you really want to get into how to do that, which I don't. So, this is good enough. So we got this is going to serve as our metal bracket. Oops. Oh, real quick, let me go into my front view, because this is going to be super wide. Thin this down a little bit. There we go. Bingo. Oops. So front view, or side view rather, excuse me. Side view first, then front view. And so, just lining that up. Now I want it to clip into the base so that the bottom of it sort of goes into the bottom of my wagon. And then in this case, I'll just pull this up a little bit so that it rests on it. And again, they would be resting on it. They'd be welded together. So, switch into face selection mode. Select the faces that are on the top half of the pipe and then hit backspace or delete to get rid of them. Okay, so let's go into our front view. Let's get this aligned with the side of our wagon. Now, someone's going to be like, oh, let's duplicate it. We'll get there. Don't worry about it. So, cool. That's good there. So let's build the left side of our wagon here, right? So, let's go to my perspective view. And so the base of my wheel, or excuse me, the center of my wheel is just a cylinder. The outside of my wheel it's like the tire, so to speak, is a pipe. And then all the spokes are just cylinders. All right, so we are going to be snapping plenty of things to the vertice that is at the end of this. All right, so first things first, I'm going to grab a fresh cylinder. This is serving as the center of my tire. So again, where all the spokes meet. So let me pull this up a little bit. Let's scale it nice and flat. Scale it in quite a bit. Thicken it up a little bit. Scale it out a little bit. It's a little too thick. All right, cool. And then on the Z-axis, another classic 90-degree rotation. The pivot point's in the center, which is A-okay with me. We want to snap that to here. I'm going to turn on my wireframe mode. Go in here, snap it on. Boom. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. 6. Nice-oo. Oh. So, here's an issue. Let me pull this off. This is not longer than my chassis, so I just need to scale this out a little bit. Let's go into my front view. There we go. Yeah, that looks fine. Okay. So now I'll just snap this back on again. That's my bad. I should have double checked that before I snapped that on there. Alright. So now I'll go back in. Wow. Did I get it? Oh, hell yeah. Oops. 6. Okay, cool. So we got that. Okay. Now let's add the outside of our tire, and then we will have the spokes connect all of those. So let's make the outside of our tire. Again, we want a pipe. Again, I'm going to make this thickness probably 0.1 this time. Pull this up. And let's thin this out. Scale it up. Thin it down. I guess the thickness does need to be 0.05. Whoops. Come on. So, same concept though. Grab this. Pivot point. Onto here. Now, be careful. Pivot point needs to also be on the spoke, not the outside of the wheel, or it will not line up. So I'm going to go in here, make sure my pivot point is snapped to the spoke. To the spoke. Or, I mean, the axle. Got him. Again, 90-degree rotation. And, whoops. Griefing myself. I'm using my numpad. There we go. Okay, now if we look at this from the side, we will see that this does not touch the ground, so that's okay. Let me look at my reference. Tires go up about this high, so this is actually perfect. So people are looking at this like, Mr. Meyer doesn't touch the ground. Don't worry about it. Move the ground can be moved. Again, you can just do this if it bothers you. I am more worried about it matching up with my reference. I will move it to touch the ground at the end if I really care that much. Okay, so don't worry about that. Okay, cool. So, my wagon is floating right now. So we got this, we got a tire. In fact, I'm going to thin this out a little bit just because it's a little close. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so now we just need some spokes. Now, you could look at this and see, what, 8 spokes if you were so inclined, but I only see 4 spokes that go through the center. So let's make a thin cylinder, and then we'll duplicate it 4 times and spin it around. So again, make this nice and tiny, make it really long. And I'm going to snap this, whoops, move tool, pivot point, blap. So this is really long, so let's fix that first. And no, I don't think I have it positioned in the right spot either. And it's also too thick, so let's scale this down until it hides inside of there. Okay, cool. Lengthen it out. Touch too long. Oh, also, okay, so now let me make sure it's on the right spot. So again, move tool. Whoops. Pivot point. Snap, or not the pivot point. Snap my pivot point to there, though. So I moved my object there by snapping the manipulator to the center. Cool. I got this spoke going up and down. Duplicate. And on the x-axis, this will be 45 degrees. Oh, Is this poking out? Hold on. Okay, well, still, this is set to object mode. Just scale this in. So I guess you want it to be inside of the object, essentially, so that it terminates inside there. So we'll duplicate again. Now let's rotate X on 90. And then one more time, duplicate. This is 135. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so now I got my wagon wheel. So let's go ahead and grab. So I'm going to switch my select tool. Let's grab this, 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 and this. So my all the objects that make up my wheel and the bracket for the shock. We duplicate those. We group those. Again, the pivot point will be at the axis of symmetry. Scale -1. Boom. Excellent. Now, I'm going to grab this, up arrow. Oh, only those ones are grouped. Fair enough. So we'll grab all those. We grab this. We grab this. We grab this, 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 and this, and this. Okay, so all of the stuff that makes up the front, axle, shocks, and tire, duplicate, group. Now, yeah, what the hell? Scale Z -1. Let's go. No. Okay, so now we'll just move it back, though. So it more or less aligns with the back of it. So we'll just... There we go. And there is your wagon chassis. So, this is where you should be at the end of part 1. You should have the entire box of the chassis built. You should have the rumble seat. You should have the axle and shocks, wheels, and again, you should have them front and back. So, again, it's a lot of using groups and duplicating and flipping along the axis of symmetry and just being methodical, about your process. So follow the process as closely as you can for my video. You know, just work one step at a time. Take it slow. All right, that's the video. Part 2 on how to do the covering will come soon.